Everybody out here getting their content. Everybody out here getting their content. Everybody out here getting their content. So, sometimes I just like to come out here and just chill. You know what I mean? Hit my balcony and shit. And just chill. You know what I mean? Something light. And why it feels like Miami. Hey yo, give me a sound check real quick. Give me a one if you can hear me. First of all, give me a one if you can hear me. Give me a two if you can hear me extra crispy. Extra crispy considering I'm on a phone. Give me a two if I'm feeling extra crispy. Give me a three if it's okay. I'm seeing some twos. I'm seeing some twos. 1.5. That's fair. That's fair. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me, and if y'all can hear me real good, that's even better because I got the ear pods in. I just want to make sure the audio comes through. It's a little windy. It's a little windy. Yo, give me a scale of 1 to 5 of how bad the wind is. 5 if it's real bad. We're gonna get into some. We're gonna get into some deep shit in a second. 1 if the wind is okay. 5 if the wind is bad. So it's kind of slight, right? I might be able to slide in between a couple of buildings on some physics shit. Yeah, yeah. Uh, Critical race theory with Hotep Jesus. This shit real simple, man. This shit real simple. I said this in the interview with Thaddeus Russell. I told him, he said them joints is collapsing. I told him, I said, the white liberal calls you the word nigga and it turns it into a class. It becomes a science. Anytime something becomes a science, it becomes an industry. Racism's an industry. It's a market. There are sellers and there are consumers. There are producers and there are consumers. There are producers of the racism. One example I gave of some of this stuff is critical race theory is like fanning the fire. Somebody asked me, they said, is critical race theory going to help change the minds of racists? No, it's actually going to get them pissed off. It's going to make them madder. It's going to make them stronger. And I think the people that push this stuff know that. They're going to push back harder. You create the enemy, and then like shit, the flies they come. So when you do things like critical race theory, you fan in the flames of racism. You fan in the flames. The flame might go out, but you keep fanning it, and that's where we at. They keep fanning the flames. So the white liberal takes the N word, he takes all this stuff and he turns it into a class. And you actually got to go to school for this stuff. You're actually going to be taking away from more productive classes to move into a space where they're going to teach you about their racist history. A white liberal is going to tell you as a nigga, look, this is what I did to you. I just did this to you. I'm going to pretend to apologize. Then I'm going to commodify your struggle, your oppression. You see, they create the oppression and then they sell it to you. They create the, and I'm gonna destroy racism in a second. I'm gonna destroy racism in a second. But that's what they do. They take the oppression and they package it like an Amazon box and they ship it to you. It's in everybody's household called the media. And it's on your social media. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. What do you do? What do you do? I think I got this shit on the wrong buttons. But they sell it to you. They commodify it and then they sell it to you. You see what I'm saying? And we buying it. People are buying it. Not only that, you got leeches. We call them grifters. The leeches and the grifters, they come and they get their little piece of the pie. They come get their little piece of the pie. Can't really blame them. They fan the flames of racism, and everybody starts eating. You know, all of a sudden you got this thing called critical race theory, and everybody's arguing about critical race theory. The problem with critical race theory is it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem of so-called black oppression. It doesn't get to the root cause of it all. Before you talk about racism, you have to do a critical analysis on classism. Before you get to racism, you first have to understand classism because we are in the Hunger Games. There's a finite amount of resources that everybody's fighting over. Whoever has closer access to those resources is going to control the planet. So what we're talking about here is infinite human beings with finite sources. Infinite human beings with finite sources. We're so infinite that we've created a space where there's infinite possibilities, infinite channels. We call it the internet. And there's property that exists in the physical world and the internet world. You got property on the physical world, and that's finite. There's only but so much planet. I believe there's plenty of planet. Then you got the internet space where there's an infinite amount of space. But people are fighting on the internet, an infinite place. Thank you for the $5 super chat. They're fighting on the internet, a place where the resources are infinite. Infinite beings fighting over infinite resources. It's not possible. They have to be fighting over something finite, something scarce, and that's the big problem. It's like aliens, let's say, for example, aliens dropped a human organism off on this planet some odd millions of years ago, put the pot of gold in a couple of places, said go. Whoever gets to the pot of gold and the resources and the water and the food and the fishes and the best land, probably going to end up ruling the world. So when you start talking about racism, I'm like, no, first, let's understand the resources and the resource distribution, the resource creation and distribution, the production and distribution. I always ask people when we talk about black oppression, I said, what's the GDP of the black community? What is the gross domestic product of the black community? Let's measure that. Everybody wants to talk about, their buying potential. Well, we can talk about how much they consume, but how much do they produce? Let's put that number out. What is the production value of the black community? If you really want to do critical race theory, you first have to go to classism and resource distribution, which brings you back to economics, first and foremost. Then you can start talking about critical race theory. Once you start talking about critical race theory, you first have to calculate the GDP of the black community. That's step one. That's step one. Nobody's talking about this. That's step one. What is the gross domestic product? And if that's falling behind other nations and other people, that's the first thing you have to address. Then when you took a look at that, you'd understand that the white man is the least of your problems. At least today, right now. China's doing a brain drain on Africa right now. They got programs where they're like, oh, you from Africa, you smart? Here, come go to university here in China. They out. $25 super chat. Appreciate you, yo. Who's that? Ms. Jiggs, appreciate you. Thank you. So the white man is the least of your concern. When people talk about critical race theory, what they're talking about is critical race emotions. Critical race emotions. These are effeminate men and feminine women. Women, but feminine women on the toxic end of the spectrum. Because there's good femininity and there's toxic femininity. If there's toxic masculinity and there's good masculinity. So we got to talk about toxic femininity, effeminate men and toxic femininity. We're talking about critical race emotions, people crying about some shit that happened whenever. If something happens to me, I don't have the option of crying about it. I don't have that option. As a man, I don't know a man on this planet who has that option to just cry about it. That's not going to fix your problems. It might work for a woman. You know, people feel sorry for them. She go to the internet, start crying, they just send her money. If I start crying on the internet, ain't nobody sending me money. They're going to make fun of me. I'm going to be a meme. Going to be a meme. So it doesn't work. So therefore, when I think about problems, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you. When I think about problems, I don't think about them from the standpoint of I have the ability to cry or I have the ability to protest. I think about it from what am I going to do to change my situation? What do I have to do to change my situation? Once I understand that, I can begin making plans and strategies and tactics to reach my goal. But again, that would create too much production. It would create too much production and therefore might increase the GDP of the black community, which is what the white liberal doesn't want, because if the black community rose up, they wouldn't need the white liberal. They wouldn't need to ask Biden for nothing. They wouldn't need to ask Kamala for nothing. You have no need to. In fact, you'd have enough money power to put who you want in power. This is where we at. This is where we at. You see, it all goes back to the main premise: infinite human beings on a finite planet. Infinite human beings on a finite planet. And critical race theory is not dealing with the GDP, they're dealing in emotions. Anytime you have an argument, a discussion, a topic, and it's dealing in emotions, you can never come to a logical conclusion, because logic can exist in the presence of emotions. Logic cannot exist in the presence of emotions. Therefore, you cannot have that type of conversation, that type of discussion to where you can move forward. Because people aren't looking at the facts, they aren't looking at the details, they're not looking at the science, they're not looking at the data. They're saying, oh my God, I'm hurt. My feelings. I can understand why a woman would think like that. I just don't understand why a woman doesn't understand why I wouldn't think like that. If you want to think like that, that's fine. If you want to be effeminate, that's fine. You want to deal with emotions, I think that's beautiful. But don't get mad at me when I look at the problems from a very scientific point of view, from a very data driven point of view. This is about haves and have nots. You don't find black people who have access to resources, access to power in oppressive situations. You cannot oppress powerful people. Which brings me to my second point. How do you measure your power? How does the black community measure their power? How do you gain power? How do you value power? What is your gross domestic power? Right back to GDP. When you mention power, they'll say things like, oh, that's a white supremacist notion. They'll call upon books like the 48 Laws of Power and say all types of negative things and so on and so forth. They'll say power is bad. You'll hear some people say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is a possibility. But that's not power. That's power as defined by its extremity. Power is the ability to do as you want. A lot of people say they want liberty and they want freedom. No, you don't want liberty and you want freedom. You want power. You see, when you have power, nobody can take your freedom and your liberty. When you got freedom and liberty and no power, it's only a matter of time until somebody comes and deliberates you. These are the facts. What you want is power. A lot of critical race theory leftists, when they deal with power, they like to talk bad about the power. Meanwhile, they have the power. They have huge influence. They sit in some of the most prestigious media outlets, some of the legacy media outlets that have been here for hundreds of years. These same black liberals have seats and voices at the biggest platforms that modify human behavior through propaganda and media production. Black elites. The black elites will turn around and tell you that power is bad, meanwhile, they have power. So just reminds me of socialism as it exists, as a contradiction and a hypocrisy uh, during the Russian Revolution. It just, their whole thing about capitalism. Meanwhile, you got Karl Marx over here betting on the stock market, and Trotsky getting caught crossing borders with, with money in his pocket. You know what I mean? Considerable amounts of money in his pocket and getting pardoned by presidents. It's just like, oh wow, Trotsky, the Russian Revolution, he got pardoned anyway. But it just reminds me, the hypocrisy of it all just reminds me of the Russian Revolution, which makes me think, are these people communists? Then you go look, and they're inside of their cohort or around or near their cohort are communists. They are socialists. So now I have to go do a study of socialism and communism, and now we're diving deeper into economics. So when we come back and we look at critical race theory, it's like, hold on, this is an economic conversation. We're talking about the distribution of resources. Then they come down the line with the bug 19, and now today, what do you got? Uh, Installations of UBI, pushes for UBI, universal basic income. They want to start giving out money to moms or something like that. I don't know. I try to keep up. Marshall Forward, thank you. Conditioning people. Critical race theory. Critical race theory doesn't begin with economics. What you do is you destroy somebody's ability to create economic power. And how do you do that? You make them dependent upon you. You see, when you leave people to their own vices, they might actually create power. They might actually create economic power. They might actually start producing things. When you start taking them off, it's just like somebody who has the mama, she got a 30-year-old son in the house. Everybody like, why he live with you? What you got to do? Kick him out. You got to kick him out. You got to figure out a way to eat on his own. The birds do the same thing. They kick the baby out the nest. If you fly, you fly. If you don't fly, you die. This is how things work. but they want the poor and groups of people to be suckled to the nipple of Mother Liberty. They want that dependency. It's the UBI. So when we talk about critical race theory, we're talking about something that has to start with an economic conversation. Has to begin there. We have to talk about economics. When we start talking about economics, we're talking about classism, we're talking about socialism, capitalism, modern capitalism, legacy capitalism, because everybody likes to, well, first and foremost, the socialists created the term capitalism, popularized by Karl Marx and Das Kapital. So this is really a machination of their creation, a machination of their imagination. Okay, and I lost my train of thought. What was the last thing I said? What was the last thing I said? Somebody help me out. Because I was about to take y'all into outer space. We was about to go into outer space. Critical Hotep theory. um, but when you're talking about critical race theory, you have an economic conversation. You have an socialism, capitalism. Yes. So the pieces of capitalism. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. The pieces of capitalism. Socialists created the word capital, capital. Capital comes from capitale, I believe, Latin, and capitale is talking about resources. The root word of capitalism comes back to resources. So it brings us right back again to the beginning where I said we got infinite human beings and finite resources. So the people want to say capitalism is bad are the people who are really saying, yo, we want to control the resources. Because what is socialism and communism but centralization of power? The word centralization exists in the 10 planks of communism by Karl Marx at least twice, I believe, to my recollection. It's all about centralization of power, which comes back to the whole Bitcoin thing about, oh, we want power, let's decentralize things, right? That's what people don't understand about socialism and communism, because I'm like, all right, I get your concepts. How does it live in practice? And when you ask these socialists and communists, you don't like capitalism and all this stuff, and they have all the finest brands and whatnot, and they look great and use Uber and all this other stuff. Like, where's your commune of people that you are able to redistribute your resources and demonstrate that capitalism is the best system? Because you always have that option to exist in any capacity in America. Find you a piece of land and set up shop and do as you will. Why don't nobody want to live like communists? Where's your commune? If you're a communist, where's your commune? You running around with iPhones and recording all types of, like, nah, you don't deal in capitalism. You don't like it. Go do your own thing. You don't never see that. You don't even see them pull their own resources together other than to go protest and tear somebody else's shit down. Because they really don't have a true ideology. Because when you get to the root of socialism and communism, you find out it's just centralization of power. Because if you're going to have the resources owned by the people, they never tell you, well, okay, who's going to make the decisions on how we distribute these resources to the people? And they'll say the people. It's okay, who? Because everybody can't make a decision at the same time. So you got to create a board and a trust, and so we're back to governments all over again, right? People never think things through. They don't want to. If they did, they find out the fallacy. What they do is they sign up for these ideologies because they come clubs that coddle their soul, their lonely souls, their trapped in digital devices, souls that were grown up. They never been outside on no bicycle. They never went to the park with their friends. So they don't even know how to communicate with human beings. People are just completely detached from life. So to wrap up critical race theory, first of all, before we wrap it up, my new book is out, The Patriot Report. It's got everything your high school teacher never told you about U.S. history. It's called The Patriot Report. If you go to my website, bryansharp.co, BRYANSHARPE.co, you'll see the thing up there. It says The Patriot Report. Hit that. Get you a copy of The Patriot Report, because it's going to disclose a lot of what I'm talking about with the money systems of America. See, if you understand the money and history pre-America and then colonial America, you'll understand today. And that's what I do. I give you all of those facts. 282 sources cited is wild. Go check that out. So to wrap up critical race theory, this is how you know somebody's being honest about talking about critical race theory. First thing you got to do is you got to ask, what is the black community's GDP? That's step one. That's step one. If they skip over that, they don't want to have a conversation because critical race theory first has to begin with economics because racism is a branch of classism. You can't get to racism until you get to classism. Because if I have all the resources, for example, let's say we take 10 people, throw them on an island, two teams of five, and we say, yo, we're gonna have a paintball wars. And one team get dropped off by the paintball guns, and those happen to be black people. And the white people laying on the side where there's no paintball guns. And the white people come to the black people's side and they go, yo, nigga, 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 nigga. But they got the paintball guns. You think they gonna care about the N-word? No, they gonna shoot you, and that's gonna be the end of your. They gonna shoot you with the paintball gun, and that's gonna be the end of you saying the N-word. But they got access to the resources. They have no power. If they know they have the guns, they're not even gonna say it. So it's about having access to resources. If I got all the guns, I'm gonna be the one talking shit. You ain't gonna feel like calling me the N-word. You're gonna be trying to be uh you're gonna be trying to be my friend. You're gonna be trying to be my ally. Yo, they got guns over there. Don't say nothing wild. Let's be nice. There's no racism anymore. All of a sudden, racism disappears because I got the resources. You can't talk about racism before you talk about classism. You can't talk about classism until you talk about distribution of resources. What did Thomas Sowell say in Basic Economics? The definition of economics is what? The study of the scarce goods and resources on the planet. Scarce goods, resources, and services. That's what he is. It's an applied science. So if you start talking about resources, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? CRT, the blue collar intellectual says CRT sucks. Fits the economics, which keeps fathers in homes. Um, yeah. Invested in educational outcomes, creating more options for success, capital, and community. Hotep and build. Hotep and build. Hotep and build. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. You feel me? That's what we do. So that's critical theory deconstructed by Hotep Jesus. Thank you for watching my stream. Do me a favor, share this. Hotep Nation weekend, end of August. Make sure you come hang out with us. I'm going to be giving 2 speeches. They're going to be crazy, insane, because that's what I do. Fresh and Fit today. I'm going to be on Fresh and Fit. Avery said 1999. Yeah, I'm going back to watch this. Thanks, H-Day. Gonna grab a copy. Word. Get you a copy of the Patriot Report. Somebody said you can just Google the Patriot Report. It pops right up. I'm gonna be on Fresh and Fit today at 7 p.m. and then at midnight tonight again. Um, so, so CRT ain't really what he said. CRT, I am me, and they can keep their communism to themselves. In the words of Eric July. Word for real. CRT ain't really accepting the mainstream, but it's still pushed hard by the elites. You see, the CRT, they pushing it in the schools because they got to keep you distracted, so you never talk about the economics. They, as long as they can keep the black community away from talking to economics, they can keep power over the black community, they can keep power over that voting block. As long as they can keep them distracted long enough. Look, don't. Oh, they're about to talk about economics. They're talking about black power. Hey, hold on. Here, create a class called CRT. Let's talk about racism again. And it's like, oh wait, we gotta talk about racism. Nah, nigga, like, how about you fund the economics class and not Keynesian economics either? How about you do that? How about you do that? How about you give us a good mix that adds some Rothbard in there, hmm? or some Milton Friedman, right? Let's do that. Let's get it. Let's not just do it, one side of the aisle, partisan economics. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. If you want to, share your bullshit Keynesian shit, You can do that. I exposed him in my book too, the Patriot Report. Edward Maynard Keynes has been exposed. Edward Maynard Keynes, I exposed him in the Patriot Report. Get a copy of that. I destroyed him. When you go look at this man and his level, oh my God, his level of connections, oh my God. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna talk about it. But y'all be safe. I appreciate you, yo. Um, let me see. Is this one I missed? Okay, nah, we good. Y'all appreciate you, yo. Again, go get a Patriot Report by Hotep Jesus called the Patriot Report. Get your copy now. Everything your history teacher never told you about U.S. history, and it begins pre-U.S. because you can't understand the U.S. without understanding its mama, Europe. And we diving straight into the money, and after the money, we're gonna talk about them two white man wars, them two world wars. Because once you understand those, you understand the current state of our decisions of going to war. You start seeing who really running the show. I'm out, man. Hotep.